Every church is like a family, and there's going to be flesh and things that you see in your leaders that are imperfect. And there's going to be moments where they might speak to you too harshly, more harshly than they should. They might make mistakes. These things are going to happen. So what's the difference between regular stuff that you have to deal with if you're going to be dealing with human beings and true spiritual abuse?
Okay, I said a key word that I want to clarify before we go in, and this is even part of my personal testimony of how I had to be healed out of everything we came through, and it was the word submission. Submission was a cuss word to me because in the cult church we were in with your family, submission was so used as a weapon against us. It was used as a weapon to tear down our marriage. They would tell you I was the Jezebel, I was unsubmitted. So then you would be like, control of like, no, you speaking against us, you're not submitted. It would create tension in us. And then obviously in just my walk with God, if I'm hearing this word and I'm hearing it used from an abusive leader that I know does not have the right heart for me and is trying to control and tear down my relationships, my marriage, now this word becomes the trigger word that I don't want to hear.
And it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is for a lot of people that have been through any type of spiritual abuse because they specifically use those portion of scriptures talking about submission to really control people. Submission is a beautiful thing, and I had to receive healing from this, but it's a beautiful thing because what submission does is it aligns you with God's hedge of protection, covering, and favor. That's literally, this is unsubmission. This is submitting to God and his word, submitting to God's house. Now I'm covered. Now my business, my family, I am covered. And now this covering brings the favor of the Lord that I'm not striving and fighting to do everything in my own strength. And it took me time to be able to heal, to recognize the power of this word that's biblical, and then to also recognize the difference between what was abusive submission and what was biblical submission. So even for people that are listening, if you have been spiritually abused, when I say submit, if your heart is like, she just said submit, I'm not talking about be controlled. I love your definition. Submission is...
It's not someone else controlling you, it's you controlling you. And here's what it means. Submission must be self-influenced, self-directed. If someone else is forcing submission, it's no longer submission, it's manipulation. And so submission comes from your own heart. Like, I desire to be undercover. I desire to be in spiritual alignment. And so it has to come from that person's heart, which means it's been hijacked by the Christian cult churches to manipulate. And we have to fight for that word definition back because it's the Lord's. The Lord invented it. And so you see all the blessings that happen with proper submission, but it can't be forced. Jesus never forced anyone ever, you must obey me. In fact, many disciples leave. He turns like, you guys gonna leave too? And so this notion of forced control is not submission, it's a narcissistic dictatorship.
Yeah, submission really is your acknowledgement to say, I might be wrong. There's a possibility that I could be wrong. So it's a beautiful protection is the way I look at it, which I'm with you. I had a really difficult time with it. Like, I'm not doing that anymore, and people aren't going to tell me what to do and control my life anymore. We went through the same decade of hell and control. But it's the admission that I might be wrong about whatever decision it is that I'm submitting.
And then people need to be aware of the difference between something that is morally, theologically, ethically wrong versus a stinking personal preference.
So good.
And so, like, we'll have people in our church like, Pastor, I don't like how you said that. Pound sand. Like, I didn't ask you of your opinion. When God spoke to me to plant a church in a city I didn't know and sell my house as the first Heart for Mercy offering and go all in, walk away from $500,000 of income in Austin, thriving, to go and obey God in a city to have nothing. Like, I didn't care about your opinion of how to do it then. And so, but like, you have these people that you're on you don't tithe, you don't serve, you don't build, you don't lift, but you got opinions. So if you're not building the church, if you're not lifting, if you're not sowing into it, you don't have the right to speak into it. And then there's a lot of people that have this notion that you have to agree with everything. We don't agree with hardly anything.
Right.
And I'm saying that jokingly, but seriously, like we
Yeah.
disagree constantly.
Right.
We have different preferences about everything. We came into this podcast today. She's like, "Would you put on a brown shirt?" I'm like, "Nope, I'm wearing this shirt. I like this shirt."
But you
Okay?
change your shoes for me.
I did, okay? Like real talk, okay?
Compliment.
Preferences are different, but people misunderstand your personal preference with the spiritual leadership of your church. And so this is where people get weird, and this is where people get offended. This is where just that whole church culture of nonsense comes in, where people get off base. There's a difference. Listen, church abuse is when there's unethical, immoral, or unbiblical things being done, when it's being covered up, where people are really being damaged, where you're using the word of God to weaponize, to attack people, to manipulate, to control people. That is when church abuse comes, okay? When you're putting the church before the people, when you're putting the preferences, the needs, when you're dominating over people, that is when you're in those abuse categories, when your marriage is suffering, when your children are falling away, when there's no fruit in those ministry. That is when there's abuse, okay? It's not when your marriage is growing, you're spiritually growing, your kids are falling in love with God, but you disagree with something, or you've been challenged
Yeah.
about something,
So, like,
and
I
you're
want
going
to
to
give
call
an
it abuse.
example. I want to give
There we
an
go, yeah.
example, okay?
Yeah.
So now at Mercy Culture, we believe you don't have to be perfect, but the pursuit of holiness should be there if you're going to be a minister on the platform. And there has been some, in our worship team that have had some pretty big struggles or even fallen into some temptation. And we love that individual, but we love that individual so much. We're to say, you need to take time and you need to step down to be healed and restored to Jesus first, but not to ministry. Many people that have come out of abusive atmospheres, their feelings have been hurt. Like, oh my gosh, you're taking me down. And what is revealed is that the platform or that ministry or gift is actually an idol because they're so used to performative church, where churches,
Use their
and
gift.
this is what spiritual abuse
That's
is.
it. It's the opposite,
Using
yeah.
your gift, using and abusing people. I could care less what your marriage is going through. I could care less what you're tempted with.
Don't tell
I
me.
could care
I don't
less.
wanna hear about
Don't
it.
tell me. I don't want to hear about it. We heard a pastor say that to us, to our
Yes,
staff.
yes.
Say, I don't want to hear about your struggles and
Yes.
sin and temptation. This is using and abusing people and putting the ministry, a platform, a
Yeah.
performance they're following before people.
I was in a car with a pastor once who one of the leaders came to him and said, "Hey, this person who's singing on our platform is really struggling. She's got all these issues and personal things." And he said, "Well, when she sings, it works. Ride that horse until it drops dead." And that is spiritual abuse.
I went to a pastor one time and I said, there's someone on the team that's struggling with sexual perversion and we need to not have them do this for a season. His response to me was, well, we won't be able to do the ministry without him. And that man fell into sexual sin and destroyed 2 lives because they would prefer them to do their job and use them versus spiritually lead them. That is what abuse is.
Even if the spiritual leadership costs them something.
Right.
Even if it means that our services are going to suffer, the excellence is going to suffer in whatever area, it's still worth it to find healing and wholeness for that person.
But that's
then
when the
this is-
show has to go on.
Yes,
Well,
that's
see,
it.
and then
The
this
show
is
must go
also
on.
let's bring it back to the people that you were talking about, the critical nature of the people. I don't like this. If the sound is this or this singer or this or this
Yeah.
or this, and you want to be critical from the outside because you have trust issues. So you're actually not even all in, and you're not serving, or you're not tithing. You're not a part of building the house of God, but you want to give all of your opinions to be critical on how it should be, but you have no idea the amount of pressure, sacrifice, perseverance that it takes for that staff, the team, the leadership of that house to be able to stand and to serve the people. And so, again, I think the challenge comes back to people and the pressure or the criticalness that you would place on your church instead of showing up, like Jesus said, to serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not church abuse when you're asked to serve. It's not church abuse when
Yeah.
you're told to
No.
not gossip about other people in the church and you're confronted by leadership. It's not church abuse when you're told you can't live in adultery, sexual promiscuity. You can't be sleeping around and be on the platform ministering. That's not church abuse.
It's not church abuse when you're
Right.
stretched.
Yeah, it's not church abuse to be told no.
Yeah.
Right.
These are not church abuse issues.
Even to be asked to do more, to say, hey, I think there's more in you, and to help you stretch and
Yeah.
grow. That isn't church abuse.
And it's not church abuse when you contend for deliverance of people.
Right.
So this coddling of trauma that we have to live in a state
Right.
of abuse
on.
forever.
Right.
And we don't want to. No, I have to forgive. I have to forgive. I had to forgive my dad. I had to forgive these pastors.
right.
I have to ask forgiveness. I had to ask you for forgiveness for how I treated you when we
Yeah.
had multiple pastors come in between
Right.
our relationship.
Right.
And so, like, you're not going to get to a point until you get to heaven where you're not going to be working on yourself.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this clip from the Holy Disruption podcast. To watch the full episode, please click the video on the screen or visit the link in the description.